he was a bit younger, my son Jax used to drag me to all the Marvel Universe movies. I know more about the Avengers than I ever imagined I would. And one of the great heroes of the Marvel Universe is the great Nordic god Thor. These Thor movies portray a pantheon of gods ruling in the kingdom of Asgard. Powerful gods, yet as noble and as petty as a human being, often fighting each other for more power and authority. These gods are actually in contrast to Christ and the scandal of the cross. In the words of the Apostle Paul, we proclaim Christ crucified, a stumbling block to Jews and foolishness to Gentiles. In other words, why do we worship a God who is killed in humiliation on the cross at the hands of evil, rather than, say, a God who wields a giant hammer against evil, like Thor? Doesn't Jesus appear to be a loser God next to Thor? A dying God is foolishness. Why, during this Holy Week, do we lift up this crucifixion as a critical component of the Jesus story? The answer is in what God seeks from us, which is transformation. God in Christ does not ask for good works or for us to use our willpower to be good. These are fine things to do as far as they go, but by themselves are only external actions. What God actually desires from us is an inner change of heart and a reorientation of our lives, which, among other things, will, in fact, result in good actions. As Paul says in our reading from Philippians today, let the same mind be in you that was in Jesus Christ. Putting on the mind of Christ. This reorientation can only happen through vulnerability and the cracking open of our egos and our false selves. We need to humble ourselves, as Paul says. The path to holiness leads through the death of our old life, and Jesus models this for us by his literal death on the cross. The mystic Richard Rohr writes, Paul, like few others, read his own tradition honestly and recognized that Yahweh consistently chose the weak to confound the strong. He saw this in Israel itself, the barren wives of the patriarchs, the boy David forgotten in the fields, the rejected prophets, and finally Jesus on the cross. This becomes Paul's revolutionary understanding of wisdom that is still offensive and even disgusting to much of the world and even the church. Only vulnerability allows all change, growth, and transformation to happen, even in God. I know of a woman who agonized watching her young adult son suffer from addiction to heroin. He was in and out of jail and rehab, and it broke her heart as she did everything she could to help him. She cried, and she prayed, and she sought recovery for him, and she went to Al-Anon. She did all the right stuff. Yet in the end, in his mid-20s, her son died of his addiction. His mother was devastated. This experience utterly broke her open and burned away any superficial mask of self or sense of control. She was utterly vulnerable and weak. And in her weakness, her false self died. Now today she credits her son with giving her a new life. Not that she would ever choose this path for him or herself or for anyone else. It was beyond horrible. Yet on the other side of it, her weakness and suffering became for her transformational. She realized that she had spent her whole life surrounded by addictions and had always felt responsible for fixing people and situations. And when confronted with her own son's death, however, she was forced to encounter her powerlessness. She cannot fix others. She was not in control, and she never had been. Her ego utterly died. This allowed her to surrender to God, and in doing so, find her true self. In fact, she says she didn't surrender. She didn't have the strength to even do that, but rather she was surrendered. This mother was transformed from the inside out. She has been through the fire of suffering and vulnerability, and paradoxically has found that true strength is found in weakness. She no longer fears death. She's already been through it. Richard Rohr writes, "It takes all of us a long time to move from power to weakness, from glib certitude to vulnerability, from meritocracy to the ocean of grace." In Paul's letter, he consistently idealizes not power, but powerlessness, not strength, but weakness, not success, but the cross. It's as if he's saying, I glory when I fail and suffer because now I get to be like Jesus, the naked loser who turned any notion of God on its head. Now, the losers can win, which is just about everybody. The revelation of the death and resurrection of Jesus forever redefines what success and winning mean. And it's not what any of us wanted or expected. On the cross, God is revealed as vulnerability itself. The path to holiness is different than any of us would have wished or imagined. Throughout our lives, we die again and again, small and large deaths, failures and fallings. And Jesus models for us that these deaths are paradoxically the very path to transformation and resurrection. As Jesus says in the Gospel of Luke, if any want to become my followers, let them deny themselves and take up their cross daily and follow me.